This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Daws.
Hello. Welcome to Partners in Crime. How about that? We're back. We had a week off, didn't we, Bob?
We did have a week off. We had a little vacation.
Yeah.
A homecation.
That makes it sound intentional.
Yes, it does. Well, no, it wasn't intentional. It's just I don't know quite how we got a week off. I just think our busy lives just didn't quite sort of sync last week.
No, there's birthdays
much to the
and
joy
things
of, I'm
going
sure,
on. And
several listeners, but there we go. We're back, and how, as they say, because we've got a great week of crime fiction wonderfulness lined up with the smashy and nicey of crime fiction podcasters, Mr. Croft and Daws. So how have you been? All right.
I'm all right. Yes, had my son's birthday last week, so that was fun, and lots going on there. He's been bouncing off the walls ever since. So took a couple of days there.
I can't believe he's 4 already.
I know.
Good grief.
I know.
Well, happy birthday, James.
Indeed, and happy birthday to Amy as well.
Well, yes, Amy had a birthday last week. In the overall calendar of the year, that particular week is always quite a challenge, a happy challenge for me, because it's Valentine's Day, followed by Amy's birthday, followed by our wedding anniversary, all in the same week. So the possibilities of me getting it wrong are immense.
But if you do, you really do.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, and I have done. I mean, we've been married for 18 years.
Wow.
Happily, thank goodness.
And how many unhappily?
Do you know what? We're thinking of that. No, we've been lucky. We really have. Yeah. And, so we've known each other for 19 of those years. So it flies by. It absolutely flies by. Where do those years go? Anyway, she managed last week. She had a wonderful time. She was reached a landmark age and was sort of dreading it. But as the day went on and the birthday fiesta unrolled, there was little unravelling as regards plans for her happiness. And luckily, it all went very well indeed. So she's now in sort of semi-mourning. She's like that character that opens every Chekhov play in black, says, "I'm in mourning for my life." She's in mourning for her birthday. But anyway, so we had a great time.
Well,
so
I can't believe she's 40 already.
I can't. Do you know what?
If you're watching,
she's looking pretty darn good. I have to say.
Well,
so,
fortunately, I didn't need to worry about Valentine's Day because that's actually my son's birthday. So as a result, we don't really do Valentine's Day. We have his birthday, and then we have a quiet drink in the evening and celebrate having somehow kept him alive for another year.
Yeah, well, I've heard of some excuses not to have a Valentine's Day in my time, son, but that happens to be one of the better ones.
Damn good timing, wasn't it?
Yeah, very good. Well, look, we've got a great week lined up. I mean, I'm going to launch straight in, if I may, if it doesn't absolutely bugger up your plan with...
Well, it does, but why not?
Oh,
go
no,
on.
well...
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, I'm just sort of very excited, really, because, I've been feeling the winter blues with the lack of engrenage spiral, the last series finishing, and feeling sort of, lower than a snake's hips, as I said last week. But this week, to my rescue, has come Chris Lang's wonderful 4th series of Unforgotten, which I think is my favourite crime series on television. And episode 1 did not disappoint at all. In fact, I wrote a thing that I was going to say, but then I came across Stuart Jeffers' Guardian review, so I'm going to actually read that out because he's far more eloquent than I am, which comes as no surprise. He does write for The Guardian. Anyway, here we are. Nicola Walker's Cassie and Sanjeev Bhaskar's Sunny team up once again, but even these seasoned professionals have their work cut out when a headless, decades-old corpse is discovered. A corpse has been found in a junkyard in Haringey, North London, headless and handless, but otherwise preserved like a Siberian mammoth. It has spent years in a freezer, in a cellar. Those archaeologists of modern life, house clearance contractors, humped the freezer from cellar to tip when the occupier became an ex-occupier. Welcome to the coldest of cold cases. Have you ever tried to identify a dead man from a Millwall FC tattoo? Me neither, but that's the least important question facing DI's Sunny Khan, Sanjeev Bhaskar, as the fourth series of ITV's crime saga Unforgotten begins. Who stashes a corpse where frozen peas should go? Whose body is it? Where's the head? In Charlton Athletics' otherwise functionally useless trophy cabinet, it's too early to rule out the possibility. Happily, Sonny catches a break in the case as he and DC Fran Lingley, Carolina Main, rummage through obsolete white goods in unbecoming hazmat suits. This is one of my favourite bits of this review. And of Chris's ingeniousness. A marathon wrapper made from wax paper is found with the body. Yeah, and, says Fran's expression, marathon, Sonny explains, as if he was settling out the causes of the Peloponnesian War, is what Snickers used to be called before the great renaming betrayal of 1990. If Fran's left eyebrow could speak, it'd be saying, "Okay, boomer." Well, there we are. I mean, he's hit it right at the nail. That was a black day for all lovers of confectionery back in 1990, and it obviously hit Chris Lang as hard as myself and many others. I'll go on very quickly. I love how the show's creator, Chris Lang, says Stuart Jeffries, captivatingly sketches the lives of four apparent strangers, challenging us to work out what they've got to do with the corpse. What might the Buxton family therapist, the flashy Southall businessman, the dodgy boss in Rochester, and the soon-to-be-married woman in Cambridge have in common? But Cassie's return is good news for us. We get to see the rekindling of the sweetest professional relationship ever to grace TV. That between Cassie and Sonny. And it is. It's a wonderful chemistry they have between them. And they've had it from the beginning, and it continues to grow. She no doubt will well up ardently as she puts her minions to work solving his historical mystery. Fingers crossed, Cassie's return will also mean that she will yet again do her Columbo homage, turning bloodshot eyes and mirthless smile on a suspect at the threshold to ask them one last question. I have to say, it's a terrific series, superbly produced.
And on the plus side, we don't need to watch it now.
Laura. Sorry?
And on the plus side, we don't need to watch it now.
No. Do you know what? I've been very careful to fill it out. A lot of Stuart's review and a lot of the plot, because that's just the setup. I mean, as usual with Chris's work, it just unfolds with surprise after surprise after surprise. But as I say, superb performances, some wonderful faces. EastEnders fans will recognise four well-known actors. One in particular of them being the extraordinary, unique Sheila Hancock. And
you know who else is in it?
Sorry?
You know who else is in it in this series of Unforgotten? One Mr. Andy Neuman.
What, Andy Neuman? Andy Neuman. Yes, I've heard it. He was very, very good. He was very, very good.
He's also very, very good at audiobook narration. He's the narrator of my Rutland series, actually.
So he is.
The second of which comes out on audiobook. If you're listening to this on Friday, on release day, if you're not watching ahead as a patron, it comes out yesterday. It comes out on the Thursday, the 25th.
Good grief. Well, I've listened to a bit of it, and he's brilliant at that too. I'm not used to seeing Andy Neuman without a beard for some reason. He looks quite different. In fact, I didn't recognise him at first. But yes, he's been lending his talents to your books, which is absolutely fantastic, and he's terribly good. And there's Peter Egan's in as well. Wonderful Peter Egan. Anyway, I can go on forever. This is, for me, the new Engrenage. So watch it. It's on Monday nights on ITV in the UK. And I don't know what platform, if you're listening to this from America or Tonga or Slovakia or wherever you may be tuning into this podcast, find out. It's Unforgotten by Chris Lang, and it stars, as we have said, Nicola Walker and Sanjeev Bhaskar. It's an absolute must-see crime drama.
Must say, I've got Moriarty here on my screen telling me that I should be setting off the name drop alert for myself for mentioning Andy Neuman, but I'm not going to. So there you go.
See, I don't have one of those. You don't allow me to have a name drop. Mind you, don't know anyone. So it's
there is that.
That is, even though you're a doctor, you're a doctor of literature. So I should be. You have asked me to bow every time we open a podcast. That was sort of one of those bows of respect, and I do find it quite. What's the word I'm looking for?
Boring.
No, I'm Dr. Croft. There we are. So over to you, I think. You've had enough of my undulcet
I was going to
tones.
mention, we talked about whether you're listening to us or watching us, and that's because Partners in Crime patrons get to watch every episode in full Technicolor, and they get to do so a few days earlier as well, so well worth looking at that. And I need to say hello to our new patrons in the last week or two, to Lisa S and to April Monday. April actually got in touch with us and she said, thank you for the recommendation of Uncle Vanya, which you mentioned on the show before last, I think, Bob.
I did, yes.
She says, I'm a bit of a Roger Allam fan, so I'll be watching it. By the way, the chances are we're all descended from Edward III, if we're English, not just Danny Dyer. Now, that's an email which pretty much in its entirety needs to be read out in the context of the conversation we had a couple of shows ago. Otherwise, none of it makes sense. So if you're new to Partners in Crime this week, maybe go back. Because, Uncle Vanya, Roger Allam, Edward III and Danny Dyer, all in a one-paragraph email. It's
yes, you'll have to be a dedicated
otherwise.
follower of Podders to actually go back and listen to that. How extraordinary. Well, we're all fans of Roger Allam. I mean, he's marvellous. And, of course, there's something I completely missed out of that. Of course, it's, he's one of the leading characters in Endeavour. So there was a crime fiction connection
and what
there.
a voice as well.
Yes, he's got a marvellous voice. He's got a brilliant singing voice as well.
I imagine
because he's done big musicals. Is there nothing Roger Allam cannot do? I put it to you, very very little, if anything at all. So
I bet he's rubbish at tennis.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the. I don't know. Looks pretty fit to me. So that's interesting. I mean. Thanks for emailing. I mean, it's always nice to get the emails in and
now
get
I fixed
a
them.
response. Now you fixed them.
Now I fixed the emails.
Now we're
they are
getting
coming
through.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised at that because you're the most efficient person I know, actually, regarding all things technical and most other things as well.
I am,
So
but our email host isn't.
Ah,
That's the issue. While I'm on Patreon, actually, I should mention that patrons, it's your last chance to get hold of our free book of the month, or your free book of the month, courtesy of Kobo, which this month is The Widow by Will Patching. It's the first in the Deadly Inspirations series. Here's a bit of a blurb for you. A brutally murdered husband, an abused wife who wanted him gone for good. Did the wealthy widow arrange his death? And can a disgraced detective discover the truth? Brilliant book, brilliant series by Will Patching. So do go on to your patron dashboard if you are a patron and grab that. It should be one of the posts from earlier this month. And of course, there's another free book of the month coming next week because it will be March. So just to let you know, if you're not a patron, patrons do get early access of every episode, or early access to every episode of Partners in Crime. They get to watch it in full video, of course. They get access to an extra bonus episode each week, Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, which we'll be recording after this, as well as that shout out on the show you heard there for our two new patrons, Lisa and April, and access to more exclusive content, including that free book of the month. So check out the link in the show notes or head to patreon.com/Partners in Crime podcast. Right, on to news. Big one this week. Martina Cole has been awarded the highest honour in British crime writing, according to the bookseller, the Crime Writers Association Diamond Dagger, which comes almost 30 years after she was dismissed by some as a one-book wonder. The Diamond Dagger is the highest award in crime, really. It recognises authors whose crime writing careers have been marked by sustained excellence and who have made a significant contribution to crime writing. It's selected from nominations provided by CWA members, and Martina Cole now joins writers such as Ruth Rendell, Lee Child, Anne Cleese, Ian Rankin, P.D. James, Colin Dexter, Reginald Hill, Lindsay Davis, Peter Lovesey and John le Carré on that list as a Diamond Dagger recipient.
Well, congratulations to Martina.
So how's that for news?
That's absolutely great news and hugely well deserved, as ever. Any other news you've got there? I've got a few things here.
I was going to do a little mini segue because we just recently mentioned patron, and one of our patrons and friend of Partners in Crime, David Nickel, who writes for about Scandinavian matters. He had an article in Forbes a couple of weeks ago now, actually, the top Nordic noir locations that have become popular tourist destinations over the past decade. I thought that's quite interesting. He lists the Øresund Bridge between Copenhagen and Malmö, which of course is is the bridge in The Bridge. It was iconic enough prior to the show, it says here, but the fictional discovery of a dead body straddling the Denmark-Sweden border elevated the bridge's iconic status internationally. Forbes says the Øresund Bridge is easy to spot when landing at nearby Copenhagen Airport. Along with the Drogden Tunnel, it forms an essential transport link for road, rail and even internet traffic between the two countries and between the Scandinavian peninsula and continental Europe. The second one he mentions is Lisbeth Salander's Stockholm from Stieg Larsson's Millennium trilogy books. There are walking tours based on it that have proved popular. Much of the tour takes place on the island of Södermalm, home to the fictional investigative journalist Mikael Blomqvist, hacker Lisbeth Salander and the author himself prior to his death. And the third one is Wallander's Istad, of course. In Wallander. A world away from the capital, home to just 20,000 people and as charming as the series portrays. Both Swedish and British versions were filmed there, and it's now a popular stop for tourists. Wallander's home on Mariagatan, along with hangouts such as the Hotel Continental and the cafes of St. Knuts Torg, and that's Knuts, Knuts, Torg, are easy to find. Copenhagen in The Killing, of course, and also features heavily in one of my favourites, Borgen. Harry Hulle from that famous Geordie crime writer, Jørgen Nesbø. Oslo, of course, and in fact Harry's apartment even has a buzzer labelled with his name in Oslo, in the apartment building where he lives. And the last one they came up with was Bergen. In 2004, readers of Dagbladet named him the most popular crime hero of all time, this being Varg Voim, by the way, the creation of Norwegian author Gunnar Starlesen. Soon after, 2004, he made his debut on the big screen, and 12 Norwegian language movies have been made, mostly based on the books. So there we go. Thank you to David for that.
Well, there we go. Well, absolutely smashing. I left a mention out on Unforgotten. A fellow, Sharma, dear friend who's actually in that. It was in EastEnders, most people know him from, and giving a wonderful performance in Unforgotten as well. Amy said it was a scene with his brother, and at the end of it, Amy turned to me and said, "He's a good actor, isn't he?" I said, "He certainly is." Yes. So there we are. I mean, yeah. Well, crime section. Well, I can actually. We're getting sort of a similar sort of vibe from Ireland. Irish noir on television certainly is beginning to take off. And this week there's been another television programme that opened, which was Bloodlands. Which stars James Nesbitt, and Paul Heron's in The Killing Times writes about it again most eloquently. But again, I'm beginning to notice familiar scenes from Northern Ireland and Ireland. There've been so many. I mean, Line of Duty's made over there, although the actual programme's not set in Ireland. But The Fall was all set in Ireland. What was the one? Marcella, who we reviewed a couple of weeks ago, was all set in Northern Ireland. I mean, it's increasingly, I mean, they've got a fantastic production foundation over there as well. But they've also got this extraordinary, it's quite beautiful and very urban at the same time. And of course, there's always the backdrop of the Troubles, the political background and the history of violence.
An air of volatility.
Yeah, so I mean that adds to everything, and that's very much a part of this new series, Bloodlands, which again it was out on this week, which is very good news for crime fiction watchers. And Paul Heron's in The Marvellous Killing Times says, "It would be wrong to call this new 4-part series an amuse-bouche as we wait for Series 6 of Line of Duty, but there are similarities and connections that can't be ignored. Written by debutant Chris Brandon, it's made by Jed Mercurio's new production company and has all the hallmarks of Jed Mercurio drama. High tempo, a relentless and addictive feeling of anticipation, whiffs of corruption," that's a fantastic phrase, whiffs of corruption, and ambiguous characters galore. It's set set in Belfast, and because it's set here, you kind of know what it's going to involve. However, there are twists and a freshness to its approach to events from the troubles that set it apart. We meet DCI Tom Brannick, James Nesbitt, a widower and father of one. He gives his 20-something daughter Izzy a necklace for her birthday, a necklace that her mother, his wife, used to own. We soon find out that Emma Brannick went missing some 20 years ago, now presumed murdered. With these revelations, the past and the present soon collide with devastating effect. Ex-IRA man Pat Keenan has been kidnapped. Reported via an old loyalist code inside Keenan's car is a postcard of a crane at some docks, which reference a serial killer from the 1990s called Goliath. Brannock, shaken to his core by the seeming re-emergence of Goliath, calls his old colleague, DCI Jackie Toomey, played by Lorcan Cranich, a terrific actor. I love his work, who immediately, some will remember him, of course, in Cracker and countless other things, who immediately raises suspicion by telling Tom to stay away from Goliath and concentrate on Keenan. Anyway, it's I'm going to cut to the end of this because it goes on, and I don't want to give too much away. It's also a good job in keeping. It does a good job of keeping the pace high with well-placed reveals of information and the odd twist. It's presented as a serial killer story, but it's not your usual serial killer story. There are obvious political, religious, and deep-rooted elements to the story that gives it a special extra dimension. We've seen a lot of character paradigms before, but something feels different here, and I'm not sure what, says Paul. And with Mercurio's fingerprint all over it, albeit in an executive producer's role, you just know it's not going to go the way you think it might, which is a good thing. Sign me up for episode 2. So there we are. We have Unforgotten and Bloodlands opening in the same week. Two very different kinds of series, but well worth the watch, certainly with the pedigree of Lang and Mercurio, two of the best crime writers in the visual medium of the television in the world, I'd say. So, over to you.
Well, yes, well, I was actually going to give that a brief mention anyway, because my friend Kevin is from Northern Ireland. Hello, Kevin, probably listening to this. He let me know that about Bloodlands being on because he's from Strabane and gets very excited about any crime dramas which he loves being set in Northern Ireland, where he's from. So just got to give him a mention. Why not?
Well, that's Irish noir. So, I mean,
yes.
Getting back to what you were saying, there are sort of lots and lots of places in Ireland which I'm sure are part of the tourist circuit. And they're very big. Wherever you go, look at there's the Morse tour in Oxford. There's there's always sort of people interested in visiting the actual locations of locations that people have set. I can remember in Leeds, people used to turn up outside this building, which was used for the police HQ in Frost. It was sort of on a ring road. Got quite a very ordinary building, whatever. But people used to stop in the coach and take their photographs and look for David Jason, who was never there, or rarely. Anyway, so yeah, there's a big market to be had in police locations, I think.
Yeah,
television locations in general.
There's we're talking about going back in time for Frost and Morse and what have we. Mashable had an article recently on why The Silence of the Lambs is still terrifying 30 years later. And it comes to a very interesting conclusion, actually. Because about 5 minutes into The Silence of the Lambs, Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, the camera lands on her eyes and a headline that says Bill Skin's fifth, complete with photos of the 5 victims. And later on, Starling and the audience see photos of their naked bodies. But the victims, it says here, don't look like svelte Hollywood starlets. They aren't thin by the killer's design too. In the film, they're called overweight, large, fat, big through the hips. But, says the author here, they look like me and many people I know. Seeing a non-thin person on screen, she says, is so rare that I'm jarred every time I watch The Silence of the Lambs, which was released 30 years ago this week. Most often I see bodies like Buffalo Bill's victims on reality television, some simply existing, others looking to lose weight. This is in part, perhaps, what makes The Silence of the Lambs so viscerally terrifying. The women Bill kills makes lambs more true to life than other crime fiction out there. in 2018, apparently 68% of American women wore a size 14 or above. But try to think, she says, of the last time you saw one, let alone multiple plus-sized women in a film or movie. Now try to think of the last time you saw one and weight wasn't at the centre of their characterisation. In the film, Bill seeks his kills precisely because they're heavier, because they have more skin than thin women. And we finally see characters whose bodies are more like ours, she says, and they're murdered because of it. And that is the killer line there, isn't it? We finally see characters whose bodies are more like ours and they're murdered because of it. So, that was an interesting take on why Silence of the Lambs is still so terrifying 30 years later, because of, I guess, being able to identify with the victims, as well as the other grounds that the film broke in so many ways.
Well, yes, and the book is still a terrifying read. I reread it a couple of years ago to see how it had held up, and it holds up very well, indeed. So anyway, I'm going to instigate something this week, which is Bobo's Kobo Bucko of the Weeko. Okay. I'm sure you...
Am I going to have to make a jingle for that?
I would have thought so. Bobo's Kobo Bucko of the Weeko. And this week it is going to be Daughters of the Night by Laura Shepard Robinson, the best historical crime novel I will read this year. I realise that we haven't really covered a huge amount of historical crime fiction in the podcast in recent months. And I think we need to address that, and I'm going to attempt to do it now. Spectacularly brilliant, one of the most enjoyable and enduring stories I have ever read, says James O'Brien. Now, it is set in London, 1782. Desperate for her politician husband to return home from France, Caroline, Caro Corsham, is already in a state of anxiety when she finds a well-dressed woman mortally wounded in the bowers of the Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens. The Bow Street constables are swift to act until they discover that the deceased woman was a highly paid prostitute, at which point they ceased to care entirely. But Caro has motives of her own for wanting to see justice done, and so sets out to solve the crime herself. Enlisting the help of thief-taker Peregrine Child, their inquiry delves into the hidden corners of Georgian society, a world of artifice, deception, and secret lives. But with many gentlemen refusing to speak out about their dealings with the dead woman and Caro's own reputation under threat, finding the killer will be harder and more treacherous than she can know. From the pleasure palaces and gin shops of Covent Garden to the elegant townhouses of Mayfair, Laura Shepard Robinson's Daughters of the Night follows Caroline Corsham, as she seeks justice for a murdered woman whom London society would rather forget. So that's Bobo's Kobo Bucko of the Weeko, Daughters of the Night by Laura Shepard Robinson. Get it at Kobo.
Kobo, yes. Well, I mean, that's what you want, isn't it? From books, I suppose, historical fiction. It's an escape, especially with everything that's going on in the world at the moment. You want something or someone to make you forget your problems, everything that's going on. It's I think historical fiction's a fantastic escape.
I think it really is, and yes. I can't begin with it. I mean, I delve in a little bit with my writing, but I've never gone back further than 1940. But history is history. I mean, it doesn't take long before the language changes and things change and technology improves. So, even if you're writing something now 20 years ago, life has changed so quickly that if you're setting your book, I'm doing it now in 1983, I'm having to rethink, and really go, there's no mobile phones, there's, only so many channels on the television, the internet in its infancy, if they're at all. I mean, all these things sort of are important, and you have to get them absolutely right, because there are many people still alive, and hopefully I'm still one of them, who actually, when watching something like that, notice the detail. And right, oh why, there was no so-and-so bus in 1982 on the Streatham route to Balham. You get all of that sort of thing. But these things matter, I suppose, which is why writers spend so much time researching and attempting to get it right.
Well, remind us of that book's title again, Bob.
It is Daughters of the Night by Laura Shepard Robinson.
Well, if you want to get hold of that, you may as well, and we'd heartily recommend it, use our wonderful sponsors, Kobo. If you head over to kobo.com, I've put that banner up in the middle of the screen there, probably not the best place to do it. Head over to kobo.com, find that book or any other book that you would like, and if you've not bought from them before, use the promo code CRIME at the checkout, and you'll get 90% off of your first purchase from them. If you're an existing customer, then follow the link in the show notes, use the promo code PARTNERS, and you'll get 40% off of all ebook purchases from now until forever.
You can't say fairer than that, can you?
You can't say fairer than that at all.
No, it's absolute bargain, son. Absolute bargain.
It is. News. Val McDermid has been speaking to The Guardian recently ahead of her latest book, Still Life, which is now out in paperback. The Queen of Crime was speaking to Kate Kellaway in The Guardian. She talks about wanting her books to have authenticity, a sense of time and space. She says she gets accused of being political, but all fiction has a political stance. This is something we've delved into many times. And interestingly, I brought this up because you were talking about going back and historical references and what have you. She says she started writing the most recent book, Still Life, in January last year, when there was no sign really that anything was coming, but the latter part was written in lockdown. She says she wanted the novel to reflect a gradual realisation of COVID and things coming in. She says she's now writing a novel set in 1979. She says, I need to be on solid ground because the present is like quicksand.
Oh.
Which I think is a very, very interesting
Oh, yeah, very wise.
remark.
Yes, it is. And I'm I didn't know that was advice she was given, but I've taken it psychically myself. Yes, I mean, I'm sort of the new book I'm writing is stops just as the pandemic begins. Really, so that's always words of wisdom from Val McDermid, and well worth always listening and reading about. So I mean, we're coming up to the end now. I think we're just sort of cruising for not a bruising, but we're cruising to the end. Have you got one last snippet of news?
I haven't. I've got a couple that I'm saving for Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, which we're going to record in just a few moments. But I think other than that, we're done. Boom.
Well, I'm going to be recommending something else. I mean, we've done historical fiction, but I'm going to be recommending a book that is written, and this is from the Times, The New Queen of the Bonk Buster. And it's occurred to me that we haven't really sort of covered bonk busting.
We tend not to.
I didn't even realise it was a sort of a thing. But there we are. So I think have we ever done a bonk buster? It's a crime fiction bonk buster.
Okay.
So I don't think I've ever read one of those. So I'm going to review it and give it a push for those listeners of Partners in Crime who like some bonk with their bust.
Are you going to come back on next week's show being all romantic and sexy towards me then?
What, again?
Again. I don't know if looking forward to this is quite the right way of putting it, but
well, anyway, it's very nice. But, as you well know, I do prefer you without the beard, Adam.
Well, the beard is shorter. I have been clipping it. It's a lot shorter than it was. No.
Yeah.
All right.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Faish. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.